Have you ever imagined waking up to find that the one thing you rely on every day, your own driveway, is suddenly claimed by someone else? Not just a neighbor, but the kind of person who seems to have a personal vendetta against your peace of mind. Well, that was me, staring at a bright red sedan blocking my driveway like it had moved in permanently. And the driver? None other than Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of neighborhood order, smiling smugly from across the street as if she had won some twisted game. It all started that morning when I pulled out my trash bins and noticed something unusual. Karen's minivan had vanished from its usual spot. I didn't think much of it at first, but when I returned home a couple of hours later, my jaw dropped. There it was, her car parked across the end of my driveway, perfectly aligned to prevent any attempt at pulling my car out. I honked, I waved, nothing. Karen stood on her porch, hands on her hips, shooting daggers with her eyes. It was clear I had entered her crosshairs. This wasn't just a minor inconvenience. My day had a schedule, appointments, work, and Karen's bright red blockade made all of that impossible. Panic started to creep in. I checked the mailbox, the front yard, even her trash cans, anything for a note or a hint about what I had done to deserve this roadside siege. Nothing. The silence was louder than any confrontation I had ever faced. Then it hit me. Karen wasn't just blocking my driveway. She was making a statement. It was power, pure and unfiltered. Her strategy was simple: frustration and intimidation. The more annoyed I became, the more control she seemed to gain. But here's the thing. I'm not the type to back down quietly. I've dealt with bullies before, but this was different. This wasn't just a playground spat. This was real-life, adult-level petty warfare. And it had escalated to my doorstep. Literally. I paced my driveway, plotting my next move. Should I call the police? Would they even take a driveway dispute seriously? Could I negotiate with someone who clearly believed that rules were optional for her but mandatory for everyone else? Then I remembered something crucial. Legality is a powerful ally, and if Karen was going to play her game, I could play mine, legally, strategically, and with a little poetic justice. Little did Karen know, by the time I was done, the tables would turn in ways she could never have anticipated. But before we get to that part, the part where she learns just how effective a calm, calculated plan can be, you need to understand exactly how this feud started, and why it spiraled so fast into a full-blown driveway war. After staring at Karen's car for what felt like an eternity, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just about a blocked driveway anymore. It was about sending a message without breaking any laws. I needed a plan that was clever, undeniable, and most importantly, legal. And that's when the idea hit me. If Karen could park wherever she wanted on my property, why couldn't I do the same with her car? But the key word here was legally. Every move had to be defensible. No reckless revenge, no angry confrontations, just strategic, methodical action. I spent the next hour researching local parking ordinances, HOA rules, and property laws. Turns out the law was clear. A vehicle blocking a driveway, even partially, was subject to towing or relocation by the property owner, as long as proper notice was given. Bingo. Karen's smug grin from earlier suddenly became fuel for my strategy. I wasn't breaking the law. I was enforcing it, and she wouldn't see it coming. I gathered the tools I'd need: cones, warning signs, and my phone to document everything. Documentation is key in situations like this. You don't want your word against someone who prides themselves on being right. Every photo, every time-stamped note, every careful step became part of my armor. Karen might have thought she had the upper hand, but I had patience, precision, and proof on my side. By mid-afternoon, I executed the first phase. I placed a "No parking driveway access required" sign on my property, making it crystal clear that any vehicle obstructing my exit would be subject to legal relocation. Then came the tricky part, moving Karen's car. Not a single touch would be done recklessly, and every action would be within legal bounds. I called the local towing company and explained the situation, making sure they confirmed the process. They could legally move her car if it continued to block my driveway. All the while, Karen watched from her porch, still radiating that overconfident energy that comes with believing you've won. Little did she know the game was shifting. While she plotted my reaction, I was setting the board in my favor. Every step I took wasn't out of anger. It was calculated, methodical, and almost poetic in its execution. By the time the towing company arrived, Karen's face changed from smug superiority to mild panic. Her bright red sedan was now the center of attention, and I stood back, calm as ever, documenting the entire process. She couldn't argue with the legality of it, nor the flawless execution. And as the car was moved, I realized something powerful. When rules and patience are on your side, Even the most overconfident Karen can be humbled. The first battle was over, but the war, it was just getting started. Because if she thought this was the end, she hadn't seen my next move, a twist that would completely flip the script and make sure she remembered who really controlled the driveway. By the next morning, the neighborhood had caught wind of the little driveway drama. I noticed more than one neighbor glancing curiously at Karen's porch, her once confident stance replaced by a tense, watchful vigilance. It was as if the universe had suddenly flipped the script, and while she simmered in quiet frustration, I was already planning the next phase of my strategy, the phase where subtlety and patience would create maximum impact. Karen had learned one thing from yesterday. She couldn't just assert her dominance without consequences, but her stubbornness wouldn't allow her to back down easily. I knew she'd attempt to reclaim control, to reassert her Karen authority over the street. That's when I decided to turn her own obsession with rules against her. I drafted a polite yet firm notice, framed it professionally, and placed it on her windshield. Your vehicle cannot block a driveway as per local ordinance. Please ensure future compliance to avoid legal action. The wording was neutral, legal, and impossible to argue with. Precisely what I needed. As the day went on, Karen paced her lawn, muttering under her breath, making phone calls, probably imagining some heroic legal battle that didn't exist. The beauty of the situation? She had no evidence to support her case. All she had was her anger and pride, and those are notoriously poor tools in a confrontation involving laws, logic, and patient persistence. By afternoon, I decided to take things a step further. Knowing she wouldn't back off voluntarily, I set up a temporary official parking spot directly in front of her house, legally marked, according to HOA guidelines. The twist? It was within the rules, documented with timestamps and signs, and clearly labeled to avoid any accusations of harassment. She approached, confusion and outrage written across her face, realizing that every move I made was fully compliant. And here's the turning point. Her reaction was priceless. Karen, who had once believed she ruled the street, now had to navigate the very rules she had weaponized against me. Her face, a mixture of disbelief and frustration, was a reminder that patience, preparation, and a calm mind often win over impulsive aggression. I didn't shout. I didn't confront her. I simply played by the rules, making her realize that law and logic always trump ego. By the end of the day, the street had returned to a kind of tense normalcy. But the dynamic had completely shifted. Karen's overconfidence had been tempered by reality, and my driveway was once again mine, unblocked, unchallenged, and fully controlled. The subtle satisfaction of legal, calculated victory replaced any anger I might have felt. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud or explosive. It's precise, undeniable, and leaves the other party speechless. But this wasn't just about a driveway. It was about respect, boundaries, and proving that strategy beats arrogance every single time. And the final chapter? Well, that's where I ensure Karen never tries something like this again, with a clever move that seals the story forever. After days of tension, the final phase of my plan was ready. Karen had been humbled, cautious, and wary, but she still lingered in her usual overconfident haze. I knew that one last clever move would cement the lesson and ensure she never tried to block my driveway again. It wasn't about humiliation. It was about strategy, patience, and making sure the rules were clear to everyone involved, including Karen. The key was timing. I observed her morning routine carefully. The car she insisted on parking in front of my driveway, the time she left for errands, and the pattern of her vigilance. With all of this documented, I made my move during a narrow window when she was gone, using the legal leverage I had built over the past days. Permits, signs, timestamps, and HOA regulations. I positioned a small, temporary official zone directly in front of her car. It wasn't blocking her property, nor was it aggressive. It was perfectly legal, but it created a moment of subtle poetic justice. If she blocked my driveway again, she would immediately face the same treatment I had applied to her, lawfully, calmly, and with total documentation. When Karen returned, her reaction was immediate. She stopped mid-step, her eyes widening as she realized the game had shifted entirely. She glanced at the signs, the neatly marked area, and the carefully documented no-blocking notes. Her body language shifted from confidence to hesitation. For the first time, she questioned whether her actions would be met with resistance this time, and the answer was crystal clear. I didn't gloat. I didn't taunt. Instead, I smiled quietly, backed away, and continued my day. The psychological impact was far greater than any confrontation could ever be. Karen understood that the next attempt to intimidate or obstruct would not go unchallenged. Every neighbor who had been watching saw the shift in power. Calm, calculated action always outweighs impulsive aggression. Over the next week, the street returned to its peaceful rhythm. Karen drove cautiously, aware of her boundaries, while I could finally park without worry or confrontation. But the victory was deeper than just reclaiming a driveway. It was a lesson in patience, strategy, and the power of using rules intelligently. It proved that when someone tries to assert dominance through arrogance, the quiet, prepared, and lawful approach often delivers the most satisfying and lasting results. And as I look back, I realized that the best part wasn't just getting my driveway back. It was knowing that every move I made was legal, ethical, and undeniable. Karen had met her match, not with anger, but with clever planning, patience, and poise. Sometimes, the ultimate payoff isn't revenge, it's victory executed flawlessly, leaving no doubt in anyone's mind who truly controls their own space. The driveway was free, the rules were clear. And Karen learned, once and for all, that strategy beats ego every single time. Can you believe what happened? If you loved watching Karen get her just desserts, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more wild HOA stories, and drop a comment telling me what you would do if your driveway was blocked like this. Trust me, you don't want to miss the next one.